the Great Amherst Poltergeist. There are stories that drift through time like whispers carried by an unseen breeze. Tales that feel too strange to believe, yet too detailed to dismiss. Stories that linger in the spaces between the known and the unknown, between sanity and the supernatural. Tonight, we journey into one of the most unsettling paranormal cases ever documented. A haunting that lasted years. A haunting witnessed by dozens. A haunting centered around a young woman whose life became the stage for something unexplainable. This is the Great Amherst Poltergeist. The chilling chapter in Canadian folklore, and perhaps the most documented poltergeist case in North American history. Sit back. Slow your breathing. Let the quiet settle around you. And listen, as we return to Amherst, Nova Scotia, in the year 1878, where the darkness had found someone to torment. Part 1. A quiet town, a quiet home. Amherst was the kind of place where life moved at a gentle pace. Wooden fences, muddy roads after rain, distant church bells, the rhythm of horse hooves, a simple world untouched by the chaos of big cities. In a small house on Princess Street lived a Teed family. It was a modest home, 2 floors, simple rooms, nothing unusual at all. Inside lived Daniel and Olive Teed, their children, and Olive's younger sister, Esther Cox. Esther was 18, quiet, polite, kind. The sort of girl who blended into the background, unnoticed by most. She wasn't looking for attention, nor did she ever expect her name would one day become synonymous with something dark, something terrifying. But life has a way of changing in a single moment. And for Esther, that moment came in the form of a trauma so deep, it seemed to tear something open inside her. Part 2. The night of the attack. One humid night in the summer of 1878, Esther Cox found herself at the mercy of a man whose intentions were twisted and vile. A man who tried to assault her, who threatened her life, who left her shaking, broken, and bleeding on the floor. She survived, but barely. In the days that followed, Esther's body healed, but something else began to unravel. Her sleep grew restless. Her appetite disappeared. Her eyes always seemed to be searching the corners of the rooms. And inside the Teed home, the air started to feel heavy, as if something unseen had settled in, watching, waiting, breathing. The haunting had begun. Part 3. The first signs. The first strange event came quietly. The soft rustling noise under Esther's bed. Tiny at first, like a mouse. Scratch, 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 then silence. Scratch, scratch, then silence. The family assumed it was a rodent, an easy explanation. But the sound returned night after night. Louder, closer, more aggressive. Until one evening, the scratching turned into knocking. Sharp, deliberate knocking. Knock, knock, knock. Everyone in the room froze. Where is that coming from? Someone whispered. The walls answered. Knock, knock, knock. 3 knocks. Always 3. The pattern that would become terrifyingly familiar. Part 4. The manifestation begins. Next came the quilts. Late at night, while Esther slept, her blankets began slipping off her bed. Slowly at first. Inch by inch, as if pulled by invisible fingers. Esther would gasp awake and clutch the quilt to her body. But the pulling grew stronger, more forceful, until the covers were ripped violently from her. Night after night, the same thing happened. Objects began moving. Shoes floated into the air. Knives flew across the room and buried themselves into the floorboards. Cold spots appeared in corners of the house even during the warmest weeks of summer. The family watched these events with terror, but there was something else, something far more disturbing. The house began responding to Esther. Part 5. The voices in the wall. The knocking grew intelligent, expressive, almost conversational. Esther would ask a question. The walls would answer. "Are you a spirit?" Knock. Single knock meant yes. "Are you here for me?" Knock. 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 3 knocks. Aggressive. Affirmative. Night after night, the entity made itself known. It described itself through knocking as the spirit, the devil, the murdered man, the tormented soul, a demon. No one could agree on what it was, but everyone agreed on one thing: it was attached to Esther. And it was growing stronger. Part 6. The writings on the wall. Soon, the poltergeist gained a new voice. One morning, scribbled across Esther's bedroom wall in jagged letters were the words, "Esther Cox, you are mine to kill." The writing appeared while Esther slept. Although the room had been locked from the inside, fear spread like sickness through the household. Guests refused to stay the night. Neighbors crossed the street to avoid the Teed home. Whispers slithered through the town: "The Cox girl is cursed, possessed, evil." But those who knew Esther saw something different. They saw terror, pain, and a girl who was slowly losing her grip on reality. Part 7. The physical attacks. The haunting escalated. Esther's body became the battlefield. She would convulse uncontrollably, as if invisible hands were shaking her. Her skin blistered without warning, red welts forming across her arms, sizzling as if burned by boiling water. Sometimes she screamed, not from fear, but from pain. Other times, she begged the entity to stop, and the entity responded. When she cried, the walls shook. When she prayed, objects hurled themselves across the room. When she tried to leave the house, the knocking followed her. Part 8. Witnesses arrived. Unlike many ghost stories whispered in the dark, this one had witnesses. Public witnesses. Doctors, shopkeepers, neighbors, visitors, even clergymen. More than 20 people reported seeing furniture move by itself, hearing the knocks, or watching Esther's body twist and contort in impossible ways. One doctor, in particular, attempted to observe Esther during an episode. He left the house white-faced, trembling, and refused to return. That doctor's written statement remains part of the historical record to this day, contributing to the continuing mystery behind the Amherst haunting. Real story. A phrase researchers still use while searching for the truth of this case. Part 9. The fire. The entity grew bold, dangerous, unpredictable. Small fires began to ignite inside the Teed home. Matches lit themselves and flew across rooms. Sheets began smoldering. Curtains caught flame without touching a candle or stove. The threat was becoming deadly. The Teed family had no choice. Esther had to leave. But where could she go? Who would take in a girl followed by a demon? Part 10. The torments continued. Esther moved from house to house, but the haunting followed her like a shadow stitched to her soul. No matter where she tried to sleep, the entity returned. Knocks, voices, objects moving, violence. Every family she stayed with begged her to leave for their own safety. Word spread across Nova Scotia. Esther's name became tangled with fear and superstition. Some believed she was possessed. Others believed she was a witch. Others claimed she was simply insane. But those who'd spent even a single night near her never doubted the haunting again. They felt it, heard it, witnessed it. This was no mere story. Something was happening to this girl. Something beyond explanation. Part 11. The Trial in the Cruel Twist of Fate. Esther Cox's torment eventually led to her arrest. After a fire in the home of an employer believed by many to be caused by the entity, Esther was blamed for arson. Not because she was guilty, but because no one could accept the truth. They needed a human villain. Someone to blame. Someone to punish. Esther fit too easily into that role. She spent several months in jail. Cold, afraid, alone. And strangely, during her imprisonment, the haunting stopped. No knocks. No moving objects. No voices. Some believed this proved Esther was behind everything. Others believed the entity had abandoned her to let the world destroy her. Part 12. After the darkness. After her release, Esther attempted to rebuild her life quietly. She married, moved away, had children, lived modestly, and the poltergeist never returned. Not even once. What does that mean? Was it trauma made manifest? Was it an entity feeding on her suffering? Was it psychological? Was it supernatural? Or was it something else entirely? Something that still lurks in the shadows of forgotten places. The answers died with Esther, who passed away in 1912. But her story continues to echo across time. Part 13. The mystery remains. The Great Amherst Poltergeist remains one of the most thoroughly documented hauntings in history. Researchers, psychologists, and paranormal investigators still study the case, trying to unravel its secrets. Was Esther the victim of abuse-triggered psychogenic episodes? Was she unconsciously responsible for the physical disturbances? Or was something truly there? Something non-human? Something ancient? Something that found a wounded soul and fed on her pain? We may never know. But the story endures. Because some hauntings never really end. They simply sleep, waiting for someone new, someone vulnerable, someone hurting, to awaken them. If you ever find yourself walking down Princess Street in Amherst, pause for a moment. Listen carefully. You might just hear it soft, faint, almost impossible to detect. Knock, knock, knock. A reminder that some stories refuse to stay buried, and the spirit that tormented Esther Cox may still be searching for a voice. This was the Great Amherst Poltergeist, a haunting that blurs the line between trauma and the unknown. If you enjoyed this atmospheric journey into the supernatural, remember to like, comment, and follow for more forgotten mysteries and eerie true stories from around the world. Stay curious, stay aware, and above all, stay in the light.